Today is the day that Arsenal face Bayern Munich in the Champions League quarter-finals. And what a day it could be for this club that will have 60,000 plus Arsenal fans inside the Emirates Stadium this evening. I'm going to be one of them. I'm sure plenty of you listening are too. And I, for one, cannot wait. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. Well, 8:05. Every single morning at 8 a.m. in inverted quote marks to tell you everything to do with Arsenal. Really appreciate your time and apologies for the slight lateness this morning. There was, again, trying to sort out the best connection possible. And you'd think that despite getting up early to do it, you'd like be ready, but still no, still not, still minutes late. Good morning to those joining us live in the chat box. Thank you so much, as always, for doing so. You are incredibly appreciated. Amesy, Glenn, Steve, True Fact. We've got Rowan, we've got Kish, Adagoke, Peter, Temi, NSW, Kim, Rob Paul, Angela, Anthony, Dylan, Tom, Stevie, Grantley, Pooj, Junior, Kaiser, Red Star, Martin, Colin, Joe, Jose. And Joe says, good morning, Goodness. Happy to be here live for once. I listen to all the shows, but this time I can attend. Big one tonight. Indeed, it is a massive game this evening. Arsenal against Bayern Munich. If you want to get mine and the thoughts of course, some of our fantastic members from our Discord server, you can do so by going and listening to our preview show, which we recorded and uploaded last night. Arsenal versus Bayern Munich in the Champions League quarterfinals. Yes, we're back here again. It may be several years later, but we are back, 14 years, in fact, in the quarterfinals of the competition. Not just as a team that are going to play a Bayern side that, if you remember all those years ago, perhaps more than a decade, nearly, I think, maybe 2 decades ago, Ivan Gazidis talking about Arsenal moving to the Emirates Stadium to be on a par, to be able to compete with Bayern Munich. Well, I can tell you that as of the 9th of April, 2024, Arsenal play Bayern Munich and go into this game as, wait for it, favourites. And not just favourites for this game, but as second favourites for the entire Champions League competition. That is how far this club has come in that time. That is how long it has taken to get to this point. Far longer than we had hoped, of course, but being here and being such a competitive team these days is so incredibly humbling and exciting to be as Arsenal fans. Do you know what else is really exciting, though? And that's the fact that when we do our 1K like everyday challenge, there's always that fear I've got that, I might, the next day we have a 24-hour clause, which means I can always try and help you guys to go and like yesterday's show because sometimes it's a bad day. We've had a bad result. And, I understand people aren't too keen on tuning in for the next show if we've lost the day before. And sometimes we need to go back and a couple of days after go back and then we can like the videos together. But you know what? We hit more than 2,000 likes on yesterday's show. It was a long show. It got a little bit deep towards the end. It was one of my favorite shows to do. I really enjoyed the conversations and it turned out to be one of the best shows we've done. And thank you for the kind support on the channel. 2,000 likes on a show is ridiculous, but we're not going to be greedy. 1K like everyday challenge is still the way forwards for us. If you could drop a like on the video, we'd be incredibly appreciative. But thank you for everybody that did show support on yesterday's show and all the kind comments that were sent my way as well. Very, very humbling indeed. Now we move to our stories. We start with the under-21s. Ethan Nwaneri scoring a relatively late goal to secure a point for Mehmet Ali's side against Stoke City away from home. Nwaneri scoring again. I mean, he just keeps on improving. He keeps on impressing. He keeps on scoring. I can't wait for the summer kind of pre-season tour. I think we got a great opportunity to see some of these young guys play more minutes with the senior side. If Arteta's not taking some of these kids to the tour, I don't know what to say. He absolutely should be. We should absolutely be seeing some of these kids on the tour. We've got European Championship, of course, meaning that for some of the early games in that tour, we may not have some of those senior stars like Saka, etc. if we expect them to go far in the European Championships. William Saliba, of course, as well. Obviously, some of the others like Martin Odegaard, who is not going to be at the European Championships, won't be there. But it's going to be a great summer. I think it's going to be an exciting summer as well. However, Jurrien Timber was not available or involved in this game, as we had kind of maybe speculated there was a chance that he could. And the reason that he wasn't is because he took part in senior training with the side ahead of the game against Bayern Munich this evening. The side was involved in its entirety, believe it or not. Every single player that could be involved in an Arsenal senior match in the senior squad that is listed on any of the lists was involved. How unreal? Like, it's almost like a unicorn in the Arsenal sphere, is it not? To have every single player of our senior squad involved in training. Last season, we were looking at things, like Saliba and Tomiyasu getting injured, Partey's form falling off, being replaced by Jorginho, and things kind of just crumbling around us as we push towards the hope that we might indeed be able to, get something from a league title chase, and we sadly weren't. But what we did get was the hope and the experience and just the knowledge of how to deal with that. And this season is different. Everybody's coming back. Players are getting ready. Timber's getting closer. Saka, Partey trained. Martinelli trained. Tomiyasu trained. Jesus trained and did the press conference. Spoke really well, I thought, in the press conference as well. If you've not watched that, I recommend you go and do that. We're not going to talk about Jesus' quotes this morning, but you can read them all, of course. I think we've done some stuff on Football.London yesterday about it too. But yeah, lots of reasons to be excited. But Mikel Arteta did a press conference following that open training session, was asked about the players relishing the big games. He says, we're really enjoying the moment. This is where we want to be. We're in a really good position in the Premier League and we're in a really good position in the Champions League. We have a big task ahead of us against one of the most successful teams in Europe, and that's the hurdle we have to overcome. And we are looking forward to it. Talking about the threat of Bayern, he said they're a tough team. I'm a big fan, a big admirer of Thomas Tuchel's teams, the way they settle and play, the way they transmit. I learn a lot about him and looking at Bayern. And when you look at and analysing this league, you see why they are a top team. We have prepared very well, and we have to take our game where we want it. And if we do that, we have a chance to win. Now, he was kind of cheekily asked during the press conference if indeed he had spoken to Xabi Alonso, who, of course, has done very well to beat Bayern Munich over the course of this Bundesliga season. And he said, great question, but I'm not going to answer it. So I think maybe we've got some ideas that maybe Arteta and Xabi Alonso have been in a little bit of a conversation. I've got a couple of tips, a couple of little insights about Bayern this season, about how maybe they can beat them. It's good to see those clubs have got a good relationship between each other. Of course, Arsenal and Bayern Munich, Bayer Leverkusen do have a good relationship because we've seen Granit Xhaka leave, and we negotiated with Bayer, in the last summer window. So yes, reason for us to get some tips. Maybe Arteta's been chatting to Xhaka. Maybe there's been some conversations go on there, but I'd be interested to see how Arsenal play the game tonight. It's going to be interesting. Of course, there's going to be no away fans at all at this game, other than those that manage to sneak into the home crowd, of which, if there are Bayern Munich fans in the home crowd and you'll go into the game and you notice them in any way, I'd recommend highlighting it to the nearest steward, of course, as well, because it is a ban. Those fans are not supposed to be there. They are taking up seats of tickets that could have gone to Arsenal fans. Call me a snitch, call me a grass, whatever you like. For me personally, I'd rather those seats that are being taken up by Bayern Munich fans that are not supposed to be there were being used by Arsenal fans that deserve to be there and have not seen their team banned from attending the game. So please do the relevant processes if indeed you do notice it. But Arteta was asked about there being no away fans, and he says it'll be a full house, a lot of passion and emotion, and we haven't had this opportunity for 15 years. So that tells you how special this night is going to be for us. So we're going to have to put everything into the game to make it happen. He was also asked about Jurgen Klopp talking about our game against Man United and the rest of the season. He says, no, I can only talk about what we do. And I think when we get to that Manchester United game, it's going to be very, very interesting indeed. But the atmosphere tonight is one I'm looking forward to, perhaps the most I've ever looked forward to a game at the Emirates. I'm ecstatic that I'm going to be there. And I cannot wait to experience that and report back to you tomorrow on how it all goes. Thomas Tuchel did face the press as well ahead of the game against Arsenal. He was talking about the reaction to the defeat at Dortmund and how that left them 13 points off the lead, and now reaching the Champions League final is the club's priority. He says, we all wanted it to be different and we are hugely annoyed, especially because of how last weekend went. We need to show a reaction and we need to get the basics back into our game. But he was asked, of course, about the upcoming fixture that we've got between Arsenal and Bayern Munich, and he talked about being, a big fan of Arteta. A big fan of the manager that he's going to be going up against. His record against Arteta is not particularly great. It's not a particularly strong record. When he was manager of Chelsea, he was not able really to get too much joy against Arsenal. I think we saw that game where he first came in. No, it was Frank Lampard, wasn't it? The one with Tammy Abraham. But we got a good result in Stamford Bridge when he was there as well. So, yes, you can watch the Tuchel press conference on the Bayern Munich website. I'm not sure if there is a text version like we get on the Arsenal website, but there is indeed a video that you can watch on the Bayern Munich website, should you so choose to do so. Right. That isn't the last story that we've got to discuss, though, today, because there is one more story to talk about, and that relates to Arsenal's future title challenging side and rivals, Liverpool. Ruben Amorim, according to reports, has been offered a 3-season deal with Liverpool to take over from Jurgen Klopp, the Sporting CP manager and head coach, of course, who has got good results against Arsenal in the past. He knocked Arsenal out of the Europa League last season and has done very well with player development, with player identification, with the improvement of Sporting as well. But Ruben Amorim is a very exciting coach, has been linked with some of the biggest clubs around, and has now, according to reports in Portugal initially, has been offered a 3-year deal to take over from Jurgen Klopp. How will that affect Liverpool? It's an interesting one. I guess we'll have to wait and see next season if indeed Amorim does take that job, how that affects the title race, how that affects Arsenal, and how that affects things for the title races between Arsenal City and Arsenal, of course, going forwards. But that is the latest on the Liverpool managerial situation and how it might affect Arsenal in the future. So could Amorim be jetting off to England? Well, you could be jetting off to the European Championships, believe it or not, because we're back with Football Prizes, who have taken us for another month, and I'm very excited to tell you about a rather interesting prize ahead of Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka and Aaron Ramsdale heading off to Germany for the European Championships. Well, this quite spectacular prize from Football Prizes, where you could win the ultimate 2024 matchday experience for two, including flights on the Football Prizes private jet. There are 20 tickets on the jet to be won. It's the biggest ever experience that they have done, and they've hired out a private jet for the Euros. This is your chance to win the ultimate Euro 2024 experience as part of the Football Prizes community, with 10 pairs of tickets up for grabs. Only $1.95 a ticket, so a very cheap one to get involved with. And what you get included in the package, should you be successful, is 2 tickets to the Football Prizes private jet from the Manchester private terminal to Cologne on Monday, the 24th of June. 2 nights accommodation in Cologne, 2 tickets to England against Slovenia at Euro 2024, and 2 tickets to the Football Prizes private jet Cologne private terminal to Manchester private on the way back on the 26th of June as well. So quite a special prize. It's UK only, of course, unless you're able to get some friends in the UK to get you some tickets. But the link is down in the description. And I can tell you, of the 49,000 tickets that are available for this one, it's a lot. Less than 10,000 have gone, which gives you great odds if you want to get involved with the competition. So best of luck to those that would like to get involved with it. And you can find a link to that down in the description. Of course, there's some other prizes available on the football website, including some Arsenal-related ones too. So have a look across the website and get involved. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions, shall we? Right after this. Okay. Joe says Romano has said that we're close to extending Arteta's contract. Did he say that? I don't know. I haven't really been across things on Romano. Shall I have a quick look? Scrolling down his feed. Not seeing anything at the moment. Still not seeing anything at the moment. Where did he say it? Hold on. In the Here We Go podcast, he said Arteta is more than happy at Arsenal for the long term. So I guess that's what he said. I don't know if there's anything on the contract there, but as I've said on the channel for a number of months now, Arteta's very happy at Arsenal. I've been saying that for a time. The club are very calm on his contract situation. He's very calm on the contract situation as well. There isn't any indication there's going to be any kind of problems or anything. So it sounds like it's going to be absolutely fine, which is really, really, really good. Daryl says, what is a trusted last-minute ticket sales website? I get asked these questions all the time. If you're trying to get tickets for the game tonight for Bayern Munich, to my understanding, it's been sold out. The only way that you're going to be able to get tickets for the Arsenal game legitimately is, of course, by going to the ticket exchange. I believe if you had a membership before, I think it was something like the 21st of March, maybe double check that on the Arsenal website. Any memberships made after that date that the draw was made, of course, are not eligible to go in for the ticket exchange because there is a fear that Bayern Munich fans may have bought Arsenal memberships later on to be able to get tickets for the game. So, of course, any memberships bought after that point will not be eligible to get those tickets, nor will they be able to be transferred tickets. So if you've bought an Arsenal membership after the date that Arsenal had announced that they wouldn't be able to be used for this game, and you're trying to buy them secondhand off others, and you try and get that ticket transferred to a membership that was bought after the date that Arsenal have stated, that could get you and the person you're getting those tickets off, which in any case is still not illegal, in a lot of trouble. So just a heads up on that, of course. And there's a very good reason why Arsenal have done that. A, to stop touting. B, to stop Bayern Munich fans from buying memberships and coming into the ground as well. If you do have a membership that, of course, was set up before the date that Arsenal said, you should have entered the ballot for the game. If you were unsuccessful in the ballot, you are eligible to go onto the ticket exchange to try and get a ticket. Daryl, in terms of secondhand websites and things like this, I'm never ever going to tell you to go and use those websites because at the end of the day, A, they're not legal. B, you can get scammed. Very, very easily get scammed. I retweeted on my account, Akil of the Arsenal Supporters Trust did a fantastic video breaking down kind of ticket scamming at Arsenal, the process as he kind of like went through the process with a scammer, up to the point, of course, where you would exchange the funds and things like that, showing you how easily it is to get scammed, to get your money stolen, and for those people to be called out basically on their BS. So just be very wary of that. If you weren't able to get tickets for the game and you're trying to get tickets on the day, there's a huge chance you're going to end up getting scammed. So do the right thing, watch the game at home, go to a nearby pub, go with your friends. If you haven't got tickets by now and you aren't successful on the exchange, sometimes some come up on the exchange last minute, but it's very, very tough to get them. If you haven't got them by now, you may just have to sadly accept the fact that that's not going to happen, which it's sad, but it's better than getting scammed and losing your money. Phil Ed says, Tom, where do you stand with managers leaving at the end of the season? Do you think that could be a negative effect when players know he won't be there? I think with Klopp, it's different to Tuchel. I think with Bayern, I don't think there'll be any issues. They change their manager like the weather changes, to be honest. They change quite regularly. Liverpool, though, there could be some question marks. Players that looked at Arsenal and Liverpool as potential destinations in the summer. Arsenal are certainly a more attractive, I think, proposition because Klopp's no longer there. There's a lot of uncertainty about that squad. Arteta's here, we expect for the long term. The way in which Arsenal have progressed, the way in which players have improved under him in recent seasons. Arsenal have so much clout, so much fuel in the tank for the transfer window. It's going to be an exciting summer. Arnold says, how on earth is Everton being deducted 2 points while Man City are fighting on the title with 115 alleged charges? Arnold, this is actually a really simple explanation. We have talked about it on the channel before. Everton faced two. They were charged twice. So there were two breaches that they were investigated for. They were found to be guilty of the first one. They were deducted 10 points. That then got reduced to 6 points. While that whole appeal was going through, which then led it going down to 6 points, they were also charged with a second breach of financial regulations of PSR. That has now come out, as David Ornstein reported yesterday on The Athletic. That has been reported to have been found guilty and they've been deducted 2 more points. The reason why they've been deducted points and Man City haven't yet been deducted any points, if indeed they are yet to be found guilty of those 115 alleged breaches, it's because it takes so long to investigate those 115. There is a date set for later this autumn for a court date. To my understanding, I think the Mail reported that as well. That is when the court date is set, when everything will come together to talk about it. And a judgment for those alleged 115 charges is not going to be until 2025, potentially at the end of next season, which ironically is when Pep Guardiola's contract is also up. So that's the expectation of when that situation should kind of work itself out. So that's the reason as to why Everton get charged and why Man City are yet to face any consequences, if any, for the allegations they're facing at the moment. Simoden says, hey, Tom, do you think Mikel Arteta had Gabriel Martinelli on the right wing when he came on for Bukayo Saka to prep him for Alfonso Davies. Interesting. I mean, is Martinelli's future on the right? He has played a couple of times coming off the bench on the right. I think it's more so because of Trossard being more attuned to the left. Martinelli's more versatile in terms of wing options than Trossard is. Trossard's more left or middle. Martinelli is left and then sometimes right, so I think he's more adept. So I think that's the reason why. But it's a good shout. Maybe that's one of the reasons as to why. Arnold says, I hear you, Tom, but it's still rubbish. Will they remove their titles? Impossible to know. I don't know if, removal of titles, removal of accolades is anything in terms of punishment. Of course, they could face points deductions. They could face potential relegation, if they were found, if indeed the punishment was deemed to be that severe. And just says, why has Forest escaped with only a 4-point deduction? That I don't know. That's the thing, Angela, I'm not really sure on. I don't really know how they come up, how they, judge these differences in point deductions when, if you've breached things, you've breached things. And if it was 1 and 1, I don't know why 1 was 10, then 6, 1's 4. I don't know. Absolutely no idea. Damien says Man City is taking longer due to the severity, and some of the charges could end up being. I mean, you could argue some of them are always going to be. You're breaking laws, you're breaking regulations. So it'd be interesting to see how it kind of unfolds if indeed these allegations are found to be. If they're upheld, Praktika says Everton have been punished because their books clearly showed that they violated the profit and sustainability regulations. City has allegedly concealed kind of things going on as well. Again, it's all allegations at the moment. I'm just going to be patient and wait and see what happens. But I understand people's frustrations for sure. And Raf says, what's interesting is that they are judging these incidents separately. Why is City's being seen in totality? I think they're still being judged kind of, I think that because there's differences. I'm not an expert at the end of the day. Please don't take anything I've said as kind of gospel. I'm not an expert on this. I'm only relaying what I've read and what I understand to the best of my knowledge of it. I'm not an expert in the field, but it's interesting. I guess what your point is, Raf, is that there's kind of 2 breaches for Everton each of those years. And so they've faced the punishment and then they've faced another punishment for a different breach, whereas City's is a massive one. I think because they're different charges, I guess. They're different types of breaches. So maybe that's why. But again, I'm just speculating at the moment. Jay says, which keeper do you think would be a great replacement for Ramsdale if he leaves? I'd go for Pickford. Why would Pickford come to be a number 2 to Raya? That's the thing, is that you've got to find a keeper that's willing to be Arsenal's number 2. And that's just impossible. Not impossible, but it's impossible to sign somebody like Pickford to be that number 2. That's the problem. Jason says, where, if any, will the weak link in the Bayern chain be? I don't know. It's difficult to. I say I don't know. I do know. It's more centre half. The centre half area is questionable. Upamecano's not had a good season. Eric Dyer is Eric Dyer. De Ligt is not the player that he used to be. Kim Min-jae has not been as good as he was at Napoli. There are weaknesses, in that team. But will Arsenal be able to exploit them? That's the bigger question. Will Arsenal be able to exploit that? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Granddaddy Gooner Paul says, Tom, have you heard Xhaka is one of the favourites for the Ballon d'Or nomination? Is he? Granit Xhaka, Ballon d'Or. Is this a joke? I hope not. Because it'd be great if it was true. I'm not seeing any reports on that at the moment, but I hope it's true. He has been absolutely fantastic. To be fair, in that Leverkusen team, you've got the likes of Boniface has been great. Schick has been great. Frimpong has got to be up there. Grimaldo has been unbelievable. Florian Wirtz also absolutely unbelievably good. Edmund Tapsoba has been fantastic at centre half. Jonathan Tah. They've got a brilliant team, Leverkusen. And, Xabi Alonso is getting the absolute maximum out of them as well. What is also something I haven't really talked about, Leverkusen, of course, that they win the Bundesliga. They'll be in pot 1 next year, which means that Bayern Munich would be in pot 2 unless they were winning the Champions League. Another thing about winning the Premier League or winning the Champions League, of course, is that you go into pot 1 of that tournament. So next season in the group stage, Arsenal would be not in pot 2, but instead would be in pot 1 of the competition, which is something that we don't really talk about. But also it's worth pointing out that next season's Champions League is different because it's a round robin system. There's extra games. It's you get drawn up against different teams. But I think you'd still be placed in those higher pot, would you not? And you'd then probably get easier fixtures compared to if you're in the next pot of the competition as well. So if we win the league, if we win the Champions League, it would mean that our first entrance into the new format of the Champions League, you'd think would be somewhat simpler. But who knows? I guess we'll wait and see. It's going to be very interesting next season's Champions League, that is for sure. Damien says, do you think overall that VAR has improved football or not? It's a good question. It's a question for an entire podcast, to be honest, Damien. I really don't know. I honestly, sometimes I think yes, because things have gone our way, which, the refereeing standards in England for me are some of the worst they've ever been. So VAR can allow us to obviously make right those wrongs, but VAR is then being manned by those same poor officials. So is it any better if the same people are in charge of it? I think it needs to be done by a third party, personally. I think it needs to be set. I mean, the whole Mike Dean situation where he talked about his mates, that just completely undermined VAR as a system. And so from my perspective, I think from that moment, absolutely it had to be a third party had to get involved with it. I lean towards yes, personally. I think I do lean towards yes. I think I'd rather have it because there's so many times. Do you ever get this feeling? Do you ever watch games in the cup competitions, in the FA Cup or in the League Cup or in the lower divisions, and decisions happen that get called wrong? And I sit there going, why isn't VAR getting involved? And you feel like, and you realise that there is no VAR. And I can't help but think that in those games, I sit there wishing VAR was there. So I guess because I have that feeling that I wish VAR was there for those games, and I'm always asking, do we have VAR for this game? Do we have VAR for this cup game? That must mean that subconsciously I'd rather it was there. That was a bit deep for VAR, but I hope that theory makes sense. I'm always kind of longing for it to be there when it's not. So I guess I think it is better to be there in some ways. Let's scroll up a little bit more. Carl says, Tom, if you were a coach and you've told us that you are not, which 2 training sessions would you take for tonight's match? I am not a coach. I've never done any type of coaching training at all since I was about 10 when I did like the first session of like a badge. But no. I wouldn't be able to tell you. I think, to be honest, anything that's as little contact as possible, keep them fit, keep them protected. Maybe maybe a game of catch. Is that the best way not to injure our players? Still, somehow, Partey would end up injuring himself, I'm sure. PKA says football needs to learn from cricket and be patient with VAR. When DRS was introduced, there was a lot of controversy. Now it's considered essential. It's a really, really good point. Philip says VAR has no way improved the decisions on the field. In fact, it's made them worse. Paul says VAR, the Newcastle Arsenal this season, Arsenal against Brentford last season. VAR is a car crash and the idiots operating it are a disgrace. There's a lot of people that feel this way about VAR, and absolutely I understand it. And I know why people would rather not have it. And I know that there's frustrations about it. I've got frustrations about it. But I cannot help but think that it is kind of better to have it than not. But maybe that's just my opinion. I think it's better to have it than not, just as I think that it gives you more chance of getting the right decision. I just think the way it's implemented is not always the best. Ben says, Tom, where are we at with the Nando's sponsorship deal? We're not anywhere. If anyone that works with Nando's is in any way watching this or listening to this and you want to get in touch, trust me, I would promote you like nothing else. So feel free to get in touch. By the way, yesterday, I put out on Twitter, I had a day off yesterday, so me and the missus went out for a lovely lunch date. Went to a place called Cake Man in Rochester High Street, which is where I live, or near where I live in Medway. And oh my goodness, I had a salt beef sandwich. Now, this is obviously the UK. We don't usually get places like this that do these type of sandwiches. The missus had a pastrami sandwich. Goodness gracious. We then had a cinnamon bun. You can tell the diet's going really, really well. So good. If you want to see what it looked like, go to my Twitter at Tom Cantor Media, and you can have a look at it there. My goodness me. It was glorious. Now, I've been to Katz's in New York City, and that is, that's top tier. But this, for a UK kind of that type of place, unbelievable. Really, really good. Nell says, have you tried the Saka sauce yet? Yes, I have. I tried it last week and it's very good. I really hope that they sell it because I will absolutely be buying a fair few sachets of that stuff. It's very, very good. Cyrus says, guys, have you clicked the like button? Thank you, Cyrus, for reminding me, mate. Much appreciated. Make sure, chat box, that if you haven't done so, please do. If you're listening on Catch Up as well on Spotify, on Amazon or Google or wherever you listen to your audio podcast, which you can do so, of course, for this on Catch Up, make sure you hop over to YouTube and show you some support by dropping a like. If you listen on iTunes, please leave a written review. If you're listening on Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating. That would be really, really kind of you indeed. Nell says, I love the sauce. Very close to taking a bottle myself. I know a fair few people that may have sneaked a few of those Saka sauce bottles away from ours. I remember when Nando's first came out. For those that aren't really aware of what Nando's is, it's just like a chicken chain here in the UK. It's kind of, I think it's Portuguese, but I don't really know why it's Portuguese, but it's Portuguese. And when you go to Nando's, at your table, you have the Nando's cockerel, which is obviously the chicken thing. So it's not. Is it a chicken? If it's a cockerel, is it like the female, the species of the chicken, and the male is the cockerel? But is a cockerel still a chicken? Is that the question? Is that the deepness we want to go to in this show this morning? I don't know. But yeah, there used to be a big scandal back in the day. Like I'm talking like 10, 15 years ago, and people were nicking the cockerels from Nando's. It got so bad because the idea is that they put them on your table so that when you have what's called a 2-bite check back in kind of in restaurant, in hospitality, is like where the waitress or the waiter will come over to you and say, are you enjoying your food? Is everything okay with your food? Just to check it's all okay. They'll then take away the cockerel so that other waiters and waitresses know that they don't need to come and check back on the table. But it became such a bad thing that people started nicking them from every Nando's that it got so bad that Nando's had to put out an appeal that said that if you bring back your stolen cockerel, they will reward you with a free meal, which obviously in some ways might have backfired because it could have encouraged people to nick more of them to do so. But I remember that being a thing way back when Nando's kind of first came onto the scene when I was younger. But yeah, it's it's a great story back in the day. Anyway, I feel like we may have gone off on a bit of a tangent like we sometimes do. But yes, please do drop a like on the video. That would be very much appreciated. Rob Bob says, if we win the Premier League or the Champions League this year, is there a shout for Arteta being the best new manager and coach ever? Did Pep challenge and win as soon as any other? Pep Guardiola obviously came through the Barcelona youth, came through the coaching of the youth teams there. He took over the Barcelona senior side in 2008. He won his first Barcelona title as a manager in the 2008-9 season. He won his first Champions League with Barcelona in also the 2008-9 season. So no, the answer is no, Rob. Pep Guardiola by far and will always be, in my view, the greatest manager of all time. And if you haven't watched Graham Hunter's documentary on Pep Guardiola's Barca, I actually might watch it again today because it is an amazing documentary talking about kind of the handover from the Ronaldinhos and the Eto'os and the Ibrahimoviches and that kind of they went through, and then the team that was eventually built. Pep Guardiola won the Tercera division with Barcelona B, which is like unheard of, like the youth team actually winning a senior league at the time when he was coming through and learning his way as a coach. He won that. He had players like Sergio Busquets and Pedro in that team, and obviously promoted those players to the Barcelona team, the senior side, when he became manager. People always talk about the fact, like A1 says, Pep had Messi. And it's like, yeah, Pep did have Messi, but he also brought through so many players from the academy and got the best out of them. Iniesta, Xavi, Busquets, Pedro, you know, these players that came through, they brought back Gerard Piqué from Manchester United and turned him into a great player. They signed Dani Alves, I think from Sevilla, I'm pretty sure. I will check that. Dani Alves, did he sign from Sevilla? Yes, he did. You know, turned him into a brilliant player. Jordi Alba, of course, came through. I think they signed Alba. Was he initially at La Masia, left and then they brought him back? Am I right in saying that? Did he leave for somewhere else? No, he came through at Valencia, and then they signed him from Valencia. Who was the one that left? Am I thinking of Carvajal leaving the Real Madrid, going to Bayer Leverkusen, then being bought back? I think that's what happened to Carvajal. But yeah, Pep for me, Arteta can't be the best new manager ever. It's taken him 5 years to potentially maybe win a title. Still one of the best young coaches if he does, and it's still a big if. He's got to do it. I don't want to talk about it really in much more than hypotheticals, but yeah. Nelson said, Johan Cruyff is the GOAT. He has a gigantic influence on football. Yeah, of course. Like I'm only going off of what I experienced as being alive. Johan Cruyff was, before my time, but Pep Guardiola took a lot of his influence and inspiration from Johan Cruyff. So I think that without question is a great point. Cruyff was probably again the biggest influencer of modern football from that era, perhaps. And then obviously you've got Wenger, his influence on the game. So Alex Ferguson, Mourinho in his own way. So yeah, very. It's a great story, as I said. Please go watch Graham Hunter's documentary that he made. Is it with Backpage? I think potentially on Pep's Barca. Amazing, absolutely brilliant piece of documentary making. Arnold says, did you know that we are on course to break Jose Mourinho's record for the least goals conceded? Least goals conceded in Premier League season. Fewest goals conceded was Chelsea with 15. Arsenal have conceded 24. So that can't be right, can it? Yeah, no, we've conceded 24 goals this season, so that can't be true. So yeah, I don't know where you got that from, Arnold. Least goals conceded was 15. We've definitely not got that record. I don't know where that's come from. Maybe it's a different record that Arsenal are on course to. Maybe it's away clean sheets, perhaps. I don't know. That sounds like maybe that's potentially something that we've done. Jay says, any update on Arsenal's interest in Evan Nilsson as the beef settles? I prefer Galeno. I've not heard anything of Arsenal's interest in Evan Nilsson. Arsenal are looking at young strikers. He's certainly one of the best young strikers around at the moment. So maybe they are, but I've certainly not heard anything suggest that he's one of those targets. Just that, he's one of the better young profiles, which is what Arsenal are looking at for centre forward, obviously, as well. Sean says, no, he's talking about in a calendar year. We've only conceded 4. Okay, so what is the Premier League goal conceded calendar year record? I don't know what it is. Nothing's really coming up. It's all in seasons. That's the thing. Most goals conceded. I want the least goals conceded. Don't know if that's even a record. So yeah, Sean, I don't know. I can't tell you. That one's not coming up for me. Paul says Arteta has had to ship out almost the entire squad that he inherited and won the FA Cup with a poor team. It's a really good point. Again, on the comparisons with Pep, like when Pep came up to Barcelona were, yes, they weren't, I don't think European champions at that point. You still had, what's his face? Who was it? Rijkaard was the manager before Pep. Rijkaard, of course, winning the Champions League against Arsenal in 2006. And that team that had Ronaldinho in it and a lot of other players, he still moved a lot of those players on. Pep did. He kept some, but eventually they got phased out. Eto'o left for Inter Milan. And there were some others, of course, that moved on as well. But he then put the stock into Messi. Like Messi came through. Messi was the guy that Pep kind of nurtured and turned into obviously he had all the talent there as well himself, but you've still got to nurture that. Like I give Arteta loads of credit for Saka. He didn't give Saka his debut. I don't think Pep gave, I'm pretty sure it was Rijkaard that gave Messi his debut, but Arteta deserves all the credit in the world for Saka's growth and for Martinelli's growth and players that he didn't sign but inherited. But Pep brought through players as well, like, as I've mentioned, Pedro Busquets. And Arteta has certainly done that to a degree also. And I think that's maybe something of the next step for Arteta is what players can he bring through? What player can he give a debut to, like a Nwaneri? And then can he cultivate him into a fantastic talent as well? That's one of the next steps, I think, as a manager for Arteta, is to have his own, moment with a young player that comes through the academy and gives them that debut. Let's go to Muzzy, who says, what are your thoughts on social media fans hyping up players like Partey and Timber playing immediately after long-term injuries, whereas in my opinion, they should be very slowly reintroduced? There's always going to be hype around players, especially Jurrien Timber. We've barely seen him, and we know that he's got loads of talent, so it's exciting to see what he might be able to do. I empathise with the people that have these views. I understand why they have these views. I don't necessarily align with them. I think players should be eased back in. I think we've made some mistakes perhaps in the past. I think maybe Gabriel Jesus was rushed back too quickly in the end. We were really needing him back, and we benefited from having him back, but then he's had re-injuries, he's had problems. He spoke in his press conference yesterday, actually, very honestly, about the fact that he doesn't remember the last time he played without pain, which is quite the admission. It's very normal, the amount of injuries these players go through. You think about talk to players after their careers, and they can end up ending their careers broken in some ways, never not being in pain again because of the careers they've had, because of what they've suffered, the things they've gone through, all the injections they've had regarding kind of pain injections to help them play through things. That takes its toll. Yeah, it's a very lucrative career, but it has its drawbacks, both mental and physical, in the long term. You think about the links that get made between footballers and early onset dementia and Alzheimer's because of the amount of heading of the ball that they do, and that's why they introduce kind of these new regulations at grassroots level to kind of dissuade young players from heading the ball until a certain age, because there are links, there are studies that show that can contribute. So, and you can absolutely understand why. So, I know we've gone again on a bit of a tangent, but it's interesting that these kind of studies come up and the information that comes out from them also. So, yes. Let's go to Viro. Says, would you rather start Partey over Jorginho? No, I'd start Jorginho tonight. I think he's earned that right. I think he's probably our best partner for Rice at the moment, and Partey can come on if we need him to. Joe says, I'd rather see Lokonga being sold when he comes back, more of a Luton level play. Oh, that's harsh. Joe, if you've seen Lokonga this season, he's higher than Luton level, much higher. When he plays, they are such a better team. Is he Champions League level? I don't know. Could he give something to Arsenal next season if we don't find the midfielder that we want? I think we can find better. But he's much higher than Luton level. For me, as a European level player, Lokonga, and I think he'll prove that. And I think maybe Arsenal will get a good fee for him. He's had a very good season for Luton when he's been available. Injuries sadly have curtailed that somewhat, but no, he's much higher than Luton level, that is for sure. Jonathan Daly says City Pep are like a little child putting cheat codes into a game, allegedly. If Arteta beats that, he's on to rule the Premier League for the next 5 to 6 years. If Arsenal, Pep and Klopp are coming to the end of their times with their clubs. Arteta is still, even though we're 4+ years in this project with Arteta, you can't help but think that he's going to be here for the long term, and it's exciting to see what can happen. As I say, if you're not on the train at this point, you never will be. And if you get on too late, and if you get on when we win the league or we win a title, it's too late. Sorry. It's there's no credit coming your way at that point. So yeah. Tiger and Gooner says Saliba's grown as well. It's a good point. He's definitely improved. Saliba, I loved his joke he made in his press conference the other day when he joked about sending him on loan to Marseille. That's when he knew he was the player that he was always going to be. It was a good comment. But yeah, I think we'll end the show there. And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Always appreciate your time. And thank you so much for tuning in. Do drop a like before you go. I am going to be heading off to the Emirates a little bit later on this afternoon. Very much looking forward to it. Yeah, it's going to be, hopefully it's going to be special. Hopefully it's going to be a very special evening. I can't wait. It's different to Porto. Porto are a monstrosity of a football team. Bayern Munich, very different. Different type of challenge, different type of opportunity. Bayern Munich will probe us in ways that Porto didn't. But Arsenal have the opportunity here to do something special. This team is ready to do something special. This team is on a precipice of greatness, in my opinion, under the tutelage of a coach that knows exactly what he was doing and where he's taken this team, and that everything that I think he envisioned gradually through this process is coming to the fore. And after 14 years of being away from the quarterfinals of this competition, we're back. After so many years of being told that we would one day be on a par in competing with Bayern Munich, we go into this game as favourites. We go into this game expectant to beat them. And that is a testament to the project. It's a testament to the investment. It's a testament to the ownership. It's a testament to everything that has gone into the last 4 and a bit years at this club. And I cannot wait and see. I cannot wait to see what this team will do. It's going to be exciting. You can watch the preview show for the Arsenal against Bayern Munich game. Is the last live upload on the channel before this one. I was joined by 3 fantastic members, as always. I was joined by Dan, Mike, and Garrett for a good chat about that. So please make sure you go and catch up on that show. That was on yesterday. You can find it, as I say, on the live section of the channel's homepage. So go and have a watch. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 a.m. once again to give you a roundup and reaction to the game against Bayern Munich and give you my thoughts. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy yourselves. If you're going to the game, be safe. If you're not and going to the pub, also be safe. If you're going and staying at home and watching it, enjoy. I hope that, and I wish you all the best in the world. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.